Madman, stage left. The audience rises and holds their breath. They let the vampires into their house, pretend they don't see when the teeth come out. Put a band-aid on their throat. No one wants to rock the boat, and no one wants to talk about it. You're not supposed to talk about it. The curtain rises and the players come out. Webs of light spinning from their mouths. Stop looking, listen for a little while. Attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I'm gonna take the terror and your sorrow fading in your blood. It's never enough.
Hello, howdy folks, welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Wednesday, March the 29th, 2023. My name is Cliff. I'm joined by Tim via Skype. We are coming to you live from Carter County, Tennessee. I'm right here in the middle of the Iron Mountain. How's it going? Reach out there in the chat, tell us what's up. Gasso's Keith with us tonight. How's it going, Tim?
Fantastic. Did you know that it is actually not too difficult to cut up trees using a hand hatchet if you know how to properly do it?
Yeah.
Anyway, I had two, what do they call them? There's some kind of pear tree that grows pretty abundantly in this area. They don't have pears on them.
Bradford pears.
Bradford pear? Huh?
Bradford pear.
Bradford pear. Yeah. Well, I've got a bunch of those out front, and we had a windstorm, and isn't that Bradford pear?
Bradford pear is the one with no pears.
Out back, who gives a shit? They're not going to Google Earth my house to see what direction my Bradford pears are facing. Facing northwest of the house, true north, some Bradford pears. So my wife's over here telling me, no, you're incorrect. You're telling them wrong. They're going to call you out online when they find out your Bradford pear trees are behind the house, not out front. Like, anyway, had a very violent windstorm that comes up through here. I saw your fence came down, so it's probably the same one, but It blew like giant chunks of those trees off. So I've been out there cutting them up, trying to make firewood. So if they might need some camping wood, I'll glad to pass that along to you.
Yeah, I reckon I'm going to file that on my insurance, man, because fences are not inexpensive. Screwed my deck up, too. It blew it and shifted it. So, yeah. If you have a hand hatchet and you're proficient with it, you can do quite a bit. I used to cut trees down with them when I was a kid. Not real big trees or anything, but
ironically, at the church I went to when I was younger, we had it was like Buckaroos and Royal Rangers and all that stuff where they kind of incorporated. It was like a church thing where they fancied it up with uniforms and took you camping and showed you stuff. And ironically, the whole time I was in there, I would think, man, we'd learn a whole lot more about survival and stuff if we stopped talking about the Bible. Right? Looking back on it today, everything that I remember had to do came from those church groups because the Boy Scouts was too concerned with selling popcorn tins and stuff. I only went for like a month. I got sick because they'd be like, here's a Swiss Army knife, talk about it for 10 minutes, and they'd talk about sales and all kinds of weird stuff.
Yeah.
So I wasn't about to hang out at a church that I didn't go to with kids I didn't go to school to talk about how to sell popcorn tins,
What's up, Alvin? Glad you managed to rouse yourself from your slumber to tune in. Good to have you with us. Yeah, I was in Cub Scouts. It's a little different because there wasn't really much of a Cub Scout group around here. My mom started one, a Cub Scout den for us, and she tried to take it really seriously. And my dad would fill in some. But we had a group of parents that did pretty good with us, and we had a good time with it. When I got older and got into Boy Scouts, I quit doing it then just because the folks who were running it just weren't, I don't know, just weren't that into it. It was good, I guess. But yeah, I did learn quite a bit from my parents, though. Already growing up where we did. I think I was in school before I went to the grocery store. I could be mistaken on that, but I remember going into the Publix here in Elizabeth and seeing the conveyor belt taking the bottles back into the back and just being amazed by that. Alvin says he teaches a class now on prepping and survival lessons from the scripture. Dude, Alvin, I'd like to officially invite you to be an in-studio guest on the Iron Mountain Hour. We'd love to have you. Definitely on the Agora front. You don't have to say yay or nay right now, but you got my email, brother. The Iron Mountain Hour at gmail.com. We are working on putting a show together about that, Alvin. You seem like you'd be a perfect guest for that, so I'd love to have you over with that. We can always pre-record on a Sunday if you don't want to be out too late. We can pre-record and then replay the live show and do it on a chat that way. Or we could record an interview and then play it in the middle of the episode. Either way, it would be cool. Yeah, dude, Tim, you were telling me about something you saw on Scanner Food earlier today.
I'm on Scanner Food right now. Sorry, responding to David McGee. He runs the hostel up there, the station on 19E, and his response was saying that there's a lot of hikers coming through his area right now, which I'm about to respond because I got distracted. Sorry, saying that I bet the station on 19E looks like absolute heaven after being on the Appalachian Trail for a couple of days.
Yeah,
a big nice venue with beer and stuff like that, and it's air conditioned with music. So,
shoot, when you're on a multiple day hike, one of those little AT shelters looks like heaven. Whenever you reach that thing, you feel like you've made some progress.
He's catching the actual Appalachian Trail hikers, the people doing the big ones. So I mean, he's getting some legit people. I'm worried about, which is what brought this whole conversation on, is the area that we live in. We got, since most of our people are not with us here in the area. We're getting a lot of attention from people moving here, and we're getting a lot of tourist people. I mean, man, like half the cars I go through in Elizabeth every day now are at least from a different county, where people are just really attracted to this new little area that they're coming across. And I'm worried because when you go to an area, this area has mountains. So I say a lot of normal people are going to try to hike here.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I think you should. I encourage people, especially if they live here, to take advantage of these mountains and waterfalls while they can. I think they're about to get a lot busier if they're not already. And from experience, my claim that I made online, I don't think these mountains are more difficult than hiking anywhere else in the world. I think people are going to underestimate them because they're beautiful. Like you try to hike in like Arizona, which was one of the things the guy mentioned here online. He was like, yeah, we're here in Arizona. Sarcastically, they close the mountains during lunchtime because it gets so hot people would die. And he's right. We don't have park rangers to tell people not to do stuff here. There's no park rangers. I mean, your brother's a park ranger. He could tell you that we have very limited resources here in comparison to the West Coast, where they have park rangers pretty abundantly. And my worry is not that these people that are experienced hikers are going to have trouble. I'm worried that like old people are going to think that like Laurel Fork is going to be an easy hike for them because they've done something out in West, but they're going to underestimate the fact that the soil is slippery. They're going to estimate the fact that the rocks move because they're not as big as they are on the West Coast. They're going to underestimate how damn humid it is here. You'll go into the woods and come out like you went into the swimming pool.
Yep.
And that just wears on you alone.
And you'll be in a dry area and step on a wet rock.
Yeah. So I really do think we're going to have tragically an increased number of people getting hurt on our trails here, simply because they're going to underestimate them because they look very, very friendly and very unassuming.
Excuse me. Breathed in my coffee there. You're not supposed to breathe it. You're supposed to drink it.
I decided I wanted the grounds.
Yeah, I wanted to have it straight. Alvin agrees with you. He said he's got a broke leg to prove it. Slippery soil is what got me, and he's got a lot of miles under his boots. Yeah, that slippery soil. Yeah, exactly. That stuff, and it'll just fall apart right underneath you, especially if you're walking on the side of a mountain, and it looks like a decent grade that you could walk on, and then all of a sudden it just starts slipping out from under you. I had a friend.
On top of the Rhone, I played a wedding up there once, and this is the only time I've come across this, and I was going to ask if you've come across this yourself. I went off the trail because it was it was really pretty. They got married on this like little trail that was laid out for you to do this. And I had a thing, and I sat there and I played a song I can't quite remember. It was really, really cool wedding thing. It's one of the best ones I've done. Anyway, they left, and I was like, I got to see up in here a little bit. I wandered off the little brick thing, the little stone thing that they had set up. And when I got over the other side, which you're probably not supposed to do, after I got about 15 feet into it, the ground was like a trampoline made of moss. And I about busted my ass. I just couldn't get myself up because for about a 40-foot area spread, what I could figure out was literally a trampoline of moss that had probably never had daylight touch it. And I couldn't get my footing on it.
Alvin
You ever
said,
came a cartoon level weird crap like that?
yeah, actually, he's describing something, different but similar. He said his feet were slipping and his cleats hit the grass and then suddenly gripped, and his momentum was going and twisted ankle and snap. Yeah, that's right. You in the middle of that stuff, you can suddenly slide and then suddenly catch grip, and then you're in big trouble. But yeah, you're talking about how you're suspecting it's going to be a lot more hiked, but man, it's pretty active right now. Have you tried to go to Laurel Fork Falls lately?
I hadn't.
Dude, every time I drive by there, I usually drive by on the way to the gun range, which is always packed now.
Okay.
I usually look over there, and sometimes I'll stop out and take a hike. I haven't done it in years because every time I've driven by there's been like 20 cars there. It's a great hike. People are enjoying it. And so I went up to the top a few times, and I have hiked it from the top, and there would still be, that somebody has a parking lot up there that they're charging, I think, $1 a car because there's so many people parking that they can't fit in the lot for the Dennis Cove entrance to Laurel Fork Falls. So, I mean, there's definitely people out there enjoying it, and like you said, there's got to be more coming in, and you've got, of course, Buffalo Mountain, you've got the Warriors Path area, you got the South Holston area, you got, there's the Appalachian Trail, all kinds of good trails all over the place. If you look up, folks, if you're new to the area, or if you're not new to the area, if you look up all trails, there's an app you can get on your phone. It's really cool. It'll show you locations of waterfalls and hiking trails, and it'll give you directions to them, tell you what to expect. It's pretty cool. Yeah, Tim's on the spot about this. I'm an old man with a lot of miles, and he's been living and have been living what he's talking about. Yeah, I think so. I think I know what he's talking about too. But yeah, I also I think you're right with folks coming in. It's not that the trails are so hard; it's that they look like soft pudding mountains, compared to like the Rockies or Mount Rainier or out in Arizona.
Yeah, it's like there's really good hiking in Colorado, and I mean I'm not implying, in case the chat goes on this, I know they already are. It's like I think one guy I'm implying that those hikes aren't difficult, but it's like no, it's like it's assumed that when they say you're going to hike 11,000 feet in Colorado, yeah, that sounds awful. That sounds really difficult. But when you look up some of the areas around here that are like 28,000. It seems like Laurel Fork wouldn't be that difficult to people, even who are experienced hikers out in the West. But out here, they don't tell you, hey, this is going to suck. You know what I'm saying? Like
it's not that difficult, but if you're not careful, you can still really screw up on it.
That's what I'm saying. Like I just think I think a lot of people are going to under prepare is all. I'm not saying there one place is easier than the next. I think this place is unassuming. I think it could get some people hurt. That's
I get exactly what you mean. And I agree. If you compare it to probably like the mountains in rural California, for example, I guess it's the Sierra Nevada. They kind of look similar. They're not big rocky giants, that stick up look like they're something that Sylvester Stallone would climb around on or something like that. They're just kind of soft, easygoing mountains, and that's what these mountains look like. But that's if you treat them like that, you can get in a lot of trouble. But there's plenty of good hiking that's not too bad. You just pay attention and be sure you know what you're doing. But I was going to show y'all last week. Well, I was going to show it on Sunday when we were doing the free for all show. This thread that I saw on Twitter where it was a person from the United Kingdom, and he was a bicyclist, and you know how I feel about bicycles on the roadways, and it was so funny because he had tweeted a picture of himself, and he was live tweeting as he was waiting behind I think I can't remember if it was a FedEx or I think it was an Amazon van. He was behind an Amazon van. He was sitting in the bike lane, and the Amazon van parked in the bike lane. And he had, while he was carrying packages in, he was parked there. And I guess he was parked at an urban building, and he carried in several packages. And the person on the bicycle kept tweeting that until he'd been there like 15 minutes. And he deleted all this, is why I'm not just showing you this. But I was just cracking up at how this person sat on a bicycle behind, who wouldn't go on the sidewalk, wouldn't go, on the around the yellow line to pass the bicycle, and was very politely tweeting at, the Amazon. Do you think your van might want to move now? Just like a Canadian almost, more than a Brit. But yeah, he's deleted the tweet. I guess he got a lot of ridicule on it, but it was pretty funny. I was going to share it with you. So last week, we were talking. It was Sunday. We were talking about we were talking about the dollar, and I think it was a little while ago, longer than Sunday. But we were talking about the dollar. We were talking about how it's kind of losing its reserve currency status. I don't remember exactly when, but it's been recent. We were talking about it. I was trying to give you an episode number, but it's not coming to mind right now. But I have a little bit more on that. And Tim and I have also been talking about for a long time about what we call the Great Ricochet. And Tim, do you want to give him a quick Cliff's Notes version of the Great Ricochet? The idea that we've termed the Great Ricochet.
Well, it's in a nutshell, it's rooted out of the idea that if you look at everything CIA, FBI, whichever group is going behind and doing, messing with your subconscious and using this, using pop culture against you, that sort of thing. If you look in the past, it seems like they do things to make people seem like they're going one way, but then when they actually want a reverse response, And so, never have I ever saw the entirety of the mainstream culture is embracing anything that's counterculture, like to a level where we're normal people that would normally consume that stuff. Because, for example, back in the day, doing stuff like Sinead O'Connor ripping up the Pope's picture or something, like, yeah, that hurt her career or whatever. But like her fans really dug that, right? Mm-hmm. Now we're not ripping up Pope pictures and stuff. Now we're getting to a really weird level with some of the stuff that we're wanting to do. So it's really weird to even see the mainstream even get involved with some of this stuff. And it looks to me, just saying, as a paranoid person who likes to theorize, that if the mainstream keeps embracing anything that seemingly is offensive to large groups of people, then it seems like they want to actually push people in the other direction, because there's always a counterculture that eventually gets bigger than the main culture and then causes the two to switch. And if you look at history, it always does that. And I'm sure you could give examples of that, of that dynamic switching. So, especially if you look at the 80s pop culture and the mainstream way of thinking as compared to the 60s, it's just a giant flip, even just the way the normal people would think things are acceptable. And Ricochet theory, like I said, even though it was really long, in a nutshell, is they oversaturate you with they oversaturate the normal population that I don't claim to be a part of with things that they will not like. So it causes them to have an overreaction to the people who do like this stuff. I just don't understand why all these companies would willingly keep losing billions of dollars, like doing things seemingly they know is just going to be polarizing for no reason. So,
Elvin, I got your email, and thank you. Glad you were able to make it, at least for a little while. It's all right if you pass out. We won't hold it against you. So, the Great Reset, I'll go ahead and take that on that one. So, I'm sure most of you know what we're talking about. But the Great Reset is the idea by basically people representing the elite of the world, the old money families, the wealthy industrialists. We're not just talking billionaires; we're talking multi-billionaire kind of people here. The idea that these people have basically used their money over the last couple of centuries to create the kind of technology in order to basically replace human beings. So now, as they create this world, and these kind of machines are capable of building new machines, and they're capable of updating themselves, and they also, machinery can be made by robots in a similar manner, where they update the machines by robot as necessary. So with all this coming, and drone technology, AI technology, there is not a need for this ruling class, these elites, these mega billion and trillionaires. There's no need for them to keep human beings around. So basically, their whole thing is, we need a great reset where we set up a new society that is divided into basically the people who own everything, and then under them you'll have the few human beings that they need to work for them, managers and things like this. And that'll comprise your very small middle class, and then everybody else will be basically a new feudal system, and there will be a system of so basically that's where they come into, these people saying they want to lessen the growth of the population, they want to lessen the amount of resources that we have available for people so that they don't reproduce as much, and they want to reduce your standing basically to literally eating bugs. And get rid of meat except for once a year, things like this, so that the earth can be sustainable for the amount of people that they have. And basically, since we're no use to them anymore, that we should be lucky just to be able to stay alive and be happy trapped in a small community that's basically planned and organized for us, and live off a stipend from the government called universal basic income. So the Great Reset is the idea that, and they say it in terms of, we're just trying to be, compassionate here and make sure that these people aren't left out in the dark. So we want to make sure that there's a stipend for them, a universal basic income, so they can afford things. But we want to put them in a community where everything they need is within 5 to 15 minutes walk of them, so they won't need a car, so they won't be polluting, and they won't have to leave anywhere. You'll be able to go in the metaverse and enjoy a vacation in your mind, like Total Recall. Just go down to Total Recall, and then you can go to Mars, and it'll seem realistic, and you'll never even have to leave. So I don't know if y'all know what that is, but that sounds a whole lot like feudal slavery, or feudal. I don't know if it's technically slavery, because you are still, allowed to leave. But if you can, if you can muster the resources to leave, it's a total other thing. But yeah, and I wish I've searched for this thing, and I've spent hours searching for it. But there's an article I read. I was in high school, about to graduate, I think. It was shortly after the Columbine shooting, and I can't remember if that was 1998 or 99, but I think it was 1998. But it was shortly after that I read there was a magazine, it was Time or People, something. It had an article about Columbine in it. And back in the middle of it, there was another article, and it was about how there was going to be a new feudal system, and that was, futurists were saying, once we got into this new economy of the future, that we would go into this, new system of feudalism, basically where corporations would be the knights and the lords, and that we would basically all fall under the umbrella of a corporation who would be responsible for taking care of us. And that always stuck with me, even though I was, 17, 18 when I read it. Because I thought to myself, these people actually really want to return to that. This is not just like, it didn't seem like, this is what we think will happen. It seemed like the person writing it wanted it to happen. And then as I got older, I became disinterested for a while, but then I started seeing more of it coming back. And this is kind of the Great Reset. It's kind of, it's planned to be the capstone of that idea of this return to a basic feudal corporate world superstate. And so part of the way that we get there involves the Ricochet, I think. And Tim and I have been talking about this since almost the very beginning of the podcast. As Tim explained, the idea is overexposing someone to something until they judge every part of it. And in Ricochet, the idea is that the left being so prevalent in culture, they've really, not only politically, but Hollywood, music, it's all really culturally driven by the ideology of the left. And it really does sound like a good ideology that everyone...
To a weird level.
Huh?
To a weird level, because, I mean, growing up as kids, I mean, we all knew, that, even as kids, that there were, like, things in the cartoons where they were trying to sneak in subtle little ideologies here and there. Because there was the big Christian war where some shows were trying to sort of show you some conservative values. And then there were shows that were trying to sneak in some weird shit to the kids and stuff like that, especially like Rocko's Modern Life, for example. But it's like they didn't come right out and just say some of the weird stuff that they try to put out there now. Like, they don't just make a cartoon with hidden stuff. The company puts it right on Twitter. This is what we think. And that's strangely divisive. Only not because I'm taking a side here. I think that's dumb for business, because why would you just try to piss off half the people you could be marketing to?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the times it doesn't even seem like virtue signaling anymore. It just seems like we're straight saying, hey, we're going to arbitrarily piss off all these people over here. It just seems weird for business for me. Maybe I just don't understand current times.
I see what you mean. And I mean, and growing up, watching movies from the 80s and the 90s, they were definitely, it's not that movies weren't political then, because they were, and they were progressive then, but the messaging was not, okay, you didn't have the actors coming out and be expected to mention something political every time that they were on stage or on a microphone. And that's pretty much how it's been over the last at least 10 years, is at the very least since Trump. But it really started, at least, I mean, celebrities have always wanted to be in front of the microphone, of course, in front of the camera. But it's become expected of people that if you are somebody in public life, if you are a public figure, then you are supposed to espouse some sort of progressive or liberal ideology, if you want to call it that, or leftist ideology. You're supposed to express that. If you don't, that's weird. And then they'll ask you why you hadn't said anything. And if you say, oh, well, I'm actually conservative, they'll start writing hit pieces about you and, get blackballed. So that's pretty well known. There are a few exceptions. Guys like Chris Pratt, he's pretty hard to blackball at this point. But they try to write hit pieces about him and stuff every now and then. So this culture has become so prevalent, like I said, especially over the past, really when Obama got in, that's when you really started, the internet was being used by pretty much everybody at that time. And that was the first real social media presidential campaign, was the election of Obama. And that got a lot of people into, because he was cool, he was the first black president. He was likable to a lot of people. He was good looking. He was somebody who was easy to be. I guess I don't want to say to fall under his spell, but especially for people who weren't familiar with politics, he seemed like somebody who was not a typical politician. So a lot of people were brought into it, and Barack Obama did a lot of, he did a lot of social media stuff. He did a lot of like late night talk shows. He made himself accessible in a different way to people. So he kind of began the merger of politics and popular culture to, of course, as I said, it was going on for a long time before that, but, to bring it to the point where the basically two are never decoupled from one another. And I think that, that finally, just solidified to the maximum extent when Trump was elected, because then it went from, oh, you're supposed to, mention, oh, how awful the police are to people, or you're supposed to mention, some political, left-wing thing, to, oh, you're supposed to punch Nazis now, you're supposed to, hate Donald Trump. If you don't hate Donald Trump, then, we can't be friends. And people really did, people broke relationships up over it and stuff. And it was a huge, it was one of the most divisive points that I can remember in my history, in my time alive. Is the Obama administration and then the Trump administration. Those two eras really changed the way that people interacted with one another in a lot of ways. And so the whole idea of this rambling presentation here is that with the left-wing ideology taking over so much of popular culture and being in almost every movie, television show, and it's in politics, many people are getting fed up, especially, traditionally minded or conservative Americans. And the idea is Tim and I are worried. I don't know if we're worried, but we see on the horizon these normal people having some sort of political revolution, taking power and using the power of the state against, the regular left-wing people on the ground who's basically fallen under the spell of this thing. And I think the main idea among conservatives, and I can definitely understand why, and, traditional American folks, Republicans, libertarians, is that the left is such a big threat to us because they have so much institutional power. And that the left is, they've looked at other leftist revolutions around the world, the way the Russians did it, the way the Vietnamese did it, and really the Vietnamese had guys, little guys in pajamas, little effeminate men, that were in these armies that took over. And so you can see why the right is leery of this, and I definitely understand it. But because of their knowledge of this, and because of the popular culture and political mix, I'm thinking we may be coming to a point where the right takes full political power and uses that power in an authoritarian way on the political left, and they're doing it in the name of stopping the seemingly coming wave of political power from the authoritarian left. And again, that long-winded explanation comes around to we've got both sides at the top. Congress is just they're just the puppets for the real money behind the scenes. So ultimately, they're going to work together when it benefits the real money behind the scenes. And the real money behind the scenes wants a certain outcome. They've expressed this, the Great Reset. And one way to get there is through authoritarian control of the nation. And the powers that be at the top, they really don't care which political ideology wins out, because they're going to be controlling either one of them. So the idea that it wouldn't turn back to the political right taking power in the U.S. and being wielded by these outside forces to, in one way or the other, remove the political left from power, I think it's a very real possibility. Go ahead.
I think the right comes next. I mean, if you follow typical ebb and flow, but if people that might doubt me might suspend the idea for just a second, and I can give you an anecdotal piece of evidence to show you what I mean. That I know a lot of people will say, like, Southern Democrats were pro-slavery and all that stuff, but I can give you something way more modern. When the Joker movie came out, it was called right-wing propaganda, and it was trying to get the right-wing incels all riled up so they could cause violence, and that's what the lefties were afraid of, that this was going to cause, when the Joker movie came out, incels to go shoot places. But how many years has that movie been out now? Because now I'm starting to see it really looks like the lefties are embracing that one now, because it's such a sort of a victim-y movie, if you really watch it. Because I'm seeing a lot of those people use that Arthur Fleck paint, and they're using the memes and stuff now because they relate to the big overthrow of the city at the end of it. Spoiler alert. And but see, just in a short amount of time, something that was wildly claimed to be right-wing trash is now being embraced by the lefties because they enjoy the real message behind it, which is eat the rich. That really is what Arthur Fleck decided to do. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's strange that people don't notice those trends, but I guess it's hard not to. I just noticed it because I'm a hermit up here on my mountain. I just sit there and watch everybody through the internet. Does that make sense?
Yep.
How you can take a movie that is now, you know what I'm saying, like that. But if you take that to the whole culture, think about what the right could turn into by the time they take control again. They might not even be free speech by that point. They might be so afraid of, let's just use this term carefully so I don't get us pulled from the net or whatever. If the mainstream media can make the right enough afraid of a 28-year-old T shooter, specifically a T or something, if they can get them enough afraid of them, they might even get them to limit gun control or something.
Yeah.
Or something. I'm just saying, you can change. I mean, people assume that a party always goes for something, but parties change, and I don't see it the right being any different.
I think that's the idea, Tim, is that it is a way. If you'll notice, the U.S. House was having a meeting to basically rebuff the ATF's attempted pistol breaks ban and these rules that the ATF unconstitutionally put into place. And then they canceled that meeting. It was supposed to happen the day after the shooting there at Covenant, and they canceled it. And I guess the girl did have a braced pistol. But it's been pretty uncommon to see those used in crimes, but it does happen. Just like any gun could be used in any crime, or any knife or any other weapon could. But yeah, I think you're right, Tim. I think that's the idea. Is they're trying to get the left riled up to go after guns, and they're trying to get the right riled up to go after trans people. And Governor Bill Lee put out a video. It was like 6 minutes long, so I'm not going to play it tonight. But
Alvin put a good capstone on what we was talking about, and to the point that you bring up quite a bit is the facial identity recognition stuff that's going to be used on all the protesters that's currently being used to go after people were the ones that was established by the right during the Islam scare.
yeah,
So, and if people want to doubt that one, I got tricked into that one, man. When I was like 18 years old, I was terrified that Muslims are going to start blowing shit up because 9/11, man, that had everybody. Like, that was literally like one of the very first things I saw out of high school. Like, literally, I went and took a graveyard shift, and pretty quickly. So it really can alter you with an 18-year-old mind using the mainstream media in a big event like that. And I'm not saying it was that people didn't die. I think it really happened. But even if 9/11 was completely to the narrative, showing the entire country that event over and over and over again, they shouldn't have done it.
the media definitely played their part.
JFK showing the president die over and over and over again. What would that do to a nation?
Yeah, they didn't show it till, it didn't. People didn't see that until the 80s, and I think it was maybe 78. Geraldo, actually, somebody brought that tape to Geraldo. It's a Bruder's family.
What was it? Geraldo but broke to the people.
The vault. There was nothing in it. Capone's vault.
Well, I'm saying, like, how irresponsible, even if it's not a conspiracy thing. Let's just put the blame on the mainstream media a second. How irresponsible is it for CNN and Fox News for, good Lord, who knows how long, to show those towers fall over and over again for weeks?
Oh, yeah.
And, like, you go to New York City, that whole damn city's still traumatized from that. So, it's just, I don't know. I think we're off topic, but go ahead.
Well, no, we're not. We're right on topic. Everybody was glued when I was at work, and everybody was glued to it for weeks after that. I mean, it stayed on the TV at work, and everybody was all Osama bin Laden, talking about how all this different intel that the news is talking about him, and it was an earth-shattering. It took the nation by storm. I think that is important because the way the right seized on that, the left kind of they wanted this January 6th to be that for the country too. So you had a riot outside the Capitol. There was some some property damage and some rioting and fighting, and that's all bad and stuff, but you heard people on the political left comparing it to 9/11. And that could only be because they wanted to use it similarly to 9/11, because it's obviously nowhere near as bad as 9/11. So but look how powerful and potent that was in galvanizing the political right against a class of enemies, in this case, the Muslim terrorists. So then the left was galvanized against the political right, the MAGA hats. Now, these were supposed to be the Nazis. They were equivalent to Nazis. You could punch them in the face, and a couple times people even shot them. So now I think we have a similar thing going on.
But if you look at the future, like now they can change what the word Nazi means, and you're still punch them in the face. But now it doesn't mean that you had a history that is rooted in literally killing Jewish people. Now it just means you shop at a pie place that they don't like gay weddings at or something really. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And yeah, you might be an asshole because you won't bake a cake for a gay wedding. But man, that is really diminishing the term Nazi when you start calling a bigot a Nazi, Yeah.
Well,
so anyway,
but then we saw the continuation of that with the political left against the traditional, it's a traditionally right-wing job of police officers. We saw that during the Obama administration, and it continued throughout the Trump administration. And Trump really galvanized the American left to throw out whatever, as long as we're going after those MAGA people. And so the left is ready to take the political right's guns and speech away. The right is ready to take the left's speech away. What I'm concerned is going to happen, though, rather than a political revolution, is you're seeing this media apparatus. The right-wing media apparatus is directing. Now that's what I was going to say about Bill Lee. His video was like 6 minutes long, so we won't play it. But a couple times in that video, he basically said, please do not go after the transgender people. I'm trying to be a governor of a state here. We need to not seek vengeance and things like this. Meanwhile, there's images floating around, and a lot of people were removed from Twitter from sharing them, about a trans day of vengeance, as they were calling it. And it had a particular date for it.
I go persecute tees?
No, it was showing, it was advising. There's been several posts among the online trans communities telling them to arm up and get ready to defend themselves, and then they're also promoting a trans day of vengeance, and there's posters with it, showing rifles and pistols and stuff, and it's implying.
I'm saying who's going to get revenge?
Well, it's saying it's the trans day of vengeance is the trans group is organizing this day of vengeance, and they're showing posters with AKs and ARs, and
they know where that
came
from?
Huh?
Do they know where that post came from?
No, but it's just been getting shared around a lot. I don't know where it originated.
That could totally be a troll.
It could be, yeah. But whether it's a troll or not, it is circling in the trans community, and they're sharing pictures of it and standing with posters that say it. So then we had the shooting at the school here in Nashville last week, which seems to definitely be an upping of the ante, a ratcheting up of the tension in this situation. And when the media began reporting on it, immediately something was off. I could tell right away because the way they were reporting, and they mentioned that it was a woman who had carried this out, and right off the bat I was like, well, something is strange about the way they're reporting it, and it's also strange for a woman to commit this kind of crime. It's basically unheard of. I'm sure it's happened a time or two, but I don't remember hearing about it. But anyway, I thought to myself, I bet you anything, and I said to a couple of friends of mine, I said, I bet you anything that not because of my suspicions towards any community or anything, but just the way that the media was reporting it, I said, I think this person must have been a transgender person. And then later that evening it came out, and then there was a lot of confusion about whether this person was a biological male or female. And, turns out it was a biological female who was identifying as a male who carried it out. So immediately you saw, predictably, the left wing jump on the gun control side, and then you saw the right wing jump on the anti-trans side, to the point where, like I said, Bill Lee came out and he put out a video, and he mentioned the victims by name, and did the whole we got to pull together as Tennesseans, all this kind of stuff. But he mentioned a couple times in there, don't go seeking vengeance. Basically, it sounded to me like he was just saying, please, I really like being governor. Don't go attacking the trans people over this. But
no, they shouldn't.
well,
It's
but
like-
with the right-wing
we
political
can say-
commentary, the right-wing political commentary is doing the exact same thing.
But isn't that hypocritical?
Yeah, it absolutely is.
They say you're not supposed to blame certain groups for doing certain things, but now you're going to blame the T's for being violent. This is the first one.
Yep, exactly.
I mean,
but that's what they're doing.
I'm very familiar with the internet culture from a certain era. I've been off of the internet culture for quite a while now, just because it started stressing me out how diabolical it was getting. There's a lot of all those memes, to the point. There's a big difference in a school pewer. Big difference in that and like a man kicking over some stuff at GameStop. You know what I'm saying? That's childish behavior versus something very violent. So I am hesitant to blame the entire group and say they're all going to start using pews versus what it looks like is they're they've got some obvious anger problems and probably so. I mean, they're a pretty troubled group.
Right. Well, what I'm saying though is there's not any indication that is more likely to happen from that group, right? Of course, if this is the first one that we know of,
it should go up actually, because as more because the T's are being more accepted in society, and population is going up. So just by that alone, you should expect the number of T's to go up. So just by statistics alone, there should be more T shooters.
But you know where this is going though, don't you? There's not so much network propaganda on this one as independent commentary. Now, who knows who some of these independent commentary creators and independent content creators on YouTube and such are getting funded by, but there's been,
Who do you suspect?
Huh?
Who do you suspect?
Well, it's not that I suspect anybody. It's that there seems to be an effort among the.
Why there's so many Canadians here?
I don't know. But there seems to be an effort among the political right wing in YouTube to direct the ire at the trans community as they have, okay, look, they've gone from, and here they've gone from, we just want to get married to, bake the cake to, teaching the kids the trans ideology in school to drag queen story time to kids at drag shows to child sex changes, and now they're coming after, they're coming into our schools. That's going to be the thought pattern. I think that's going to be what's spread through a lot of these content channels. I've seen the beginnings of that already. So if that doesn't start, cause a violent conflict, like we said, the right wing political revolution is more likely because it's just ratcheting up the tension more and more. So whether this is the final trigger for it or not, it's just another rise in the heat, so to speak.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just interjecting with points because it makes my brain hurt that people get. I don't know. I think the reason I get bothered about politics is because both sides, and maybe it's because they have to play dirty. Mm-hmm. And I feel like at some point where the right was so heavily Christian, they had to hide their dirty tactics, hide them real well because they had set such a high standard from what conservatism meant that they weren't allowed to be seen doing anything like mudslinging. And so the left had free reign to do dirty stuff, but now it seems like the right has free reign to do a lot of dirty stuff too. And it's set this precedent where politics can just straight be dirty and everybody's just okay with it. And that can escalate,
Mm-hmm. Well, it's like the mail-in ballot situation during COVID. The mail-in ballots started universal mail-in ballots in a lot of states. And so the Democrats were hip to this, and they went out and they collected ballots from people, especially when they live in dense urban areas where, a whole lot of people live per square mile compared to, you could have thousands of people per square mile versus, out here in a rural area, you're going to be dozens of people per square mile. I mean, maybe even tens of thousands of people, I guess, per square mile in rural areas. So, I mean, in city areas. So if you're going to do a universal ballot, you send everybody a ballot, and one person has to go out and collect these things and bring them back in. You can do a lot more that way, going door to door and picking these things up. So the Democrats took advantage of this. Do what? Oh, what's up,
We
Spill?
got Spill in the chat. Hey, I didn't see you, Joe. Sorry, I ignored you.
Oh, and Alvin, he mentioned that it's called the Cloward Piven strategy, documented in the 60s, and Saul Alinsky wrote Rules for Radicals from it. Yes, indeed. Cloward Piven, basically, that's the back and forth strategy we talked about earlier, where you rise tensions. Oh, yeah. One side throws the other side over and uses the political power against the other side while they build the political power, and then the other side takes over that political engine, uses it on the other side, and they kind of grind on you. Like it's that that giant with a left leg and a right leg. It's just one foot just stomping down at the time, and it's got a left fist and a right fist. The right fist is just straight power, and the left fist has a velvet glove over the iron hand.
It's like specifically they use one to create situations that are going to like hamstring themselves. I know I mentioned the one that you've mentioned like quite a bit, which is the January 6th. And the big connection back to the what's it called? Patriot Act, is that one of them?
Mm-hmm.
I think like all that stuff's connected. So it's like you set rules that are going to be used against you. And like I think what's going to happen is the way they did the January 6th, where it's like they could kind of hunt you down now. Because I mean, you remember the big billboards they had around here that was like, if you know anybody that was connected to January 6th, they had one in front of Food City for a couple of weeks. That said, if you knew anybody that's connected to January 6th, call this number for like for something. I don't know for what. But like you don't think the left is okay with that, and they don't think that that's not going to be used against Antifa when the right takes over, because now you've set a new precedent that we're supposed to help out the man, and the left was supposed to be anti the man, and that was just weird to me that they were so quick to jump into the government's little kangaroo pouch, Yeah.
Well, where all this goes and why we were discussing it, you were bringing it back around to the Patriot Act, which is one of the other things I want to talk about, the Restrict Act. We talked about that on the show on Sunday, and that's the TikTok ban. And it turns out it's a whole lot more than a TikTok ban. Let's listen to, this is Republican Senator from, I think, Missouri, Josh Hawley, talking about it. Let's listen to him real quick.
Is we should act decisively to ban TikTok directly. We shouldn't give new open-ended authority to federal bureaucrats. We should target this threat specifically. That's what this bill does that we have before us today. It goes right at the problem. It bans TikTok in this country. It protects the American people, and it sends the message to communist China that you cannot buy us.
You know what I think about when I hear this? It reminds me of the political right in the 1980s trying to ban music. And so they're going at symptoms of the problem rather than the problem itself. So in the 1980s, if your kid was out, listening to satanic music and doing crazy shit with his friends and, I don't know what, killing chickens, I mean, and you want to blame the music on that, but there's obviously something else going on in a kid's life to be engaging in the sort of behavior that you don't want them to. So again here, the TikTok, it's not just that, okay, there's supposedly China has an algorithm, right, that feeds us different stuff than what they get, but is it that, or is it that our society is degraded to the point where what we want to see is the depraved shit on TikTok all the time? That's what our society actually wants to see. So it's really just more of a feedback loop than it is actually programming our society. Our society is becoming a very degenerate society anyway. So what else would these people want to watch but degeneracy? And TikTok can give it to them. But if your society wants engineering students and stuff like that, it might give you that. But regardless, here's the Republicans going. The Democrats brought up the bill to ban TikTok, but not only that, they wanted to also basically have the Secretary of Commerce and I think the Secretary of Defense have basically carte blanche access to all your network, every device on your network. So it'd be the extension of the Patriot Act, because in the Patriot Act, at least you're supposed to get a warrant that the judge can give you basically over the phone, but at least you do have to run it by a judge. This would actually just give the Secretary of Commerce carte blanche to decide if they want to spy on everything that you're doing, which you already know they have. I mean, they have access to everything anyway, because if they can get a warrant and then suddenly start spying on you, well, they had access they could have spied on you all along. So ultimately, they could if they wanted to without a warrant. Well, this would make it legal for them to without a warrant, which totally violates the Fourth Amendment, but, they don't care about that kind of thing. Spill, she says, let's see. Did I read Alvin's, to Tim's point, everything they've accused the conservatives right of doing or being a specific script of what they will and are adopting for their own gains? Yeah, there's, I think it was one of the libertarian institutes did a song to the tune of Lady Gaga's Paparazzi called Punch a Nazi, and one of the things was it said, "So what if I become the thing I claim to not be? Punch a Nazi." And that was always the one of the main lessons in a lot of movies is, about revenge and stuff, is that a lot of stories about revenge is that ultimately you don't want to become what you set out to vanquish the world from. Whatever evil it is that you set out to stop in the world, you don't want to become that evil yourself. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Alvin. And let's see, where you going with that gun in your hand, says Spiel. Hell yes, ban TikTok. They probably have to make a replacement, unfortunately, with our instant gratification. Like, yeah, if they ban TikTok, I mean, there'd be another one step in to take its place. Now, I'm all for them saying now the government, if you can't have it on a government phone, or if you're a government employee, even saying, sorry, if you're a government employee, you can't have TikTok. Because, but I'm not for a ban.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, because I think if you can ban TikTok, I think you can actually start going after other things like guns, because it's a misconception of what it is. You just need to create a new version that doesn't pump everything straight to the head of the government of China. You can totally do that. You can be in a different country and not automatically give all your stuff to a country if the China will agree to it, right? They won't agree to it, so you got to do something. Just build your own damn TikTok. You know how easy it would be to build another TikTok?
I mean, that's Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts.
Well, I don't know. Maybe TikTok's kick-ass and I don't know anything about it. I'm just saying, just build another one. If the government bans it, just build your own version of TikTok and just start over. And I don't know.
I mean, it's short format video, so TikTok just happens to be the most popular one. But
yeah, we started with Vine, I think, unless there was one that predated Vine.
No, I believe it was the first. It was the 6-second videos, wasn't it?
I don't even know. I don't have a problem with the format of it. The point that I don't really want to tell people out in the culture, because people are so polarized by what you say these days, as someone who doesn't currently own a gun, and as someone who doesn't have any children, so I'm either very out of place to say this, or maybe I'm just in a very unique place to say this. I don't think it's the guns, and I don't also want to blame the generation of children, because you can only blame children for what their parents have allowed them to do, and then if you start playing the blame the parents game, you have to start playing this generational game of who do we start playing the Billy Joel, who we didn't start the fire song for, is that because that's what we start doing generationally is start blaming the one before us. Zoomers hate boomers for being so selfish, and one day somebody's going to hate Zoomers for doing that, And I think at some point we just have to recognize human beings are probably the problem, and the fact that we allow a culture to thrive that actively poisons our brain, and we know it's doing it, but we just do it anyway. I think we should allow cigarettes, for example. But if we're going to put warning labels about cancer on cigarettes, I don't think we should be called crazy right-wingers or even crazy leftists if someone raises a concern about a TV show maybe not being the best for their child, like that's my concern. Is like we play the blame game so much that we don't actually fix the problem. Because I don't think guns are the problem, and I don't even think the trans people are the problem. I think the problem is the culture that is causing this behavior.
Yeah.
To really sound like a real dumb yuppie, to sum it up, but it really is. It's human beings that are causing this.
Yeah.
We like violence.
You're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Well, that Restrict Act, it does go further than the Patriot Act. It allows feds access to all the data on your device, including your home doorbell, your security cameras, your modem, and I'm pretty sure it's all without a warrant. So, and who would be there? You know, of course, of the left and right at the top of the Senate. Of course, Republican Lindsey Graham's on there, and you know, there's a bipartisan sponsorship of the bill. Of course, all the worst ones will have bipartisan, and that just goes to show you, again, I don't know if it goes to prove it, but it gives you some more evidence that these people all work for the same people. When there's an important issue, they'll work together, they'll make it happen, and you know, the public be damned.
Man,
Alvin says. Do what?
But go ahead, read off his thing. I got a question I think should just be obvious, but go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to say, Alvin says, cancel culture creates counterculture, the tagline I'm working on for Agora economic model I'm working on. I like that. Cancel culture creates counterculture. That's exactly right. Go ahead, Tim.
How did the party, being I guess, Democrat, left, maybe it's not the Democrat, maybe I'm getting that wrong, and it's just the left that really got this. But, like, the left is what brought like Noam Chomsky into the limelight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like civil rights, and they were really focused on how the government was doing bad stuff. And at that point in time, all the journalists that were focused on the government were in the left. And it's just from my experience, but all the right wing people were very much into Bigfoot when it came to that stuff. And then the right wingers started leaning more into it. Probably after 9/11. Before that, anybody that had really right-wing beliefs were more libertarian. They weren't like staunch Bush-loving Republicans, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just really strange for me to see, aside from if they're right or wrong about the points, it's just really strange for me to see a group of people that used to believe that there was controlled opposition not see that they're being used for something in the long term.
Yeah.
Because I really think there's going to be a dark day I think there's going to be a dark day that I disagree with. I'll say that up front. I don't want it to happen. I think there's going to be a dark day coming from the LGBT community, because there's always a balance. You know, there's a down for every up. So you saw how the right wing just could do whatever the hell they wanted to back there for a minute because people were so afraid of Jimmy Carter's weakness. You know.
Yep. Yep, and I think you're right. And I was discussing this with a friend of mine, and I won't say his name. He lives in Ohio, because I didn't ask him if I could. I don't think he'd care. But he and I were having this kind of the same discussion, and he summed it up, and I think we'll sum it up tonight with this. And this is not his desire. This is what he realistically feels is going to happen. And I basically said I think the left and right are being pitted against one another, and the grassroots right is going to be used against the grassroots left.
You think it's the grassroots? Because I think it's the upper tier.
Well, that's who's doing the using. I think they're going to use the people on the ground, the grassroots. That's what I think.
I think like a grassroots. Well, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe I'm getting the term wrong. Yeah,
I just mean the people who, you know, I guess technically grassroots would be it starting from the ground up, but they're going to use the people who normally start this kind of thing and kind of get them riled up. But anyway,
you think a lot of this, but when you say grassroots, do you think a lot of this will be done out of like repressed anger?
Something, yeah. And I'm talking like when I say grassroots, what I really mean is like, you know, the Proud Boys and Antifa, that kind of deal. Like, are these, you know, these groups, not necessarily those particular groups, but, you know, the groups who go on the streets and fight each other in the streets. That's who I'm talking about. And I said basically the groups who are fighting each other in the streets are going to be pitted against one another in the very near future, and it's going to be the left and right pitted against one another, and they're both being riled up by people up here pulling strings, and they're being set against one another. And he summed it up by saying, "Well, it looks like there's the left will be forced to eat a shit sandwich." And there'll be no option for not taking seconds or something like that. And I was like, yeah, well, that's what it's looking like. I hope, and like you said, I hope that's not the case. I don't mean people like that. Grassroots was not the right way. So sorry for confusion. I'm talking about the active people out in the streets. Do what?
I think what I was about to argue was going to be incorrect too, though. So I would rather have your word for it. Like, I was talking more like the people that really stay glued to what the narrative is. And I think there's a lot of people out there that are way more frazzled. And that's coming from somebody, which, I mean, hell, you can clip this if you want to. Like, this is just an explanation for people who don't understand my stance. Part of the reason I even do this show is like exposure therapy, because I don't like this shit. Like, it stresses me out to be able to see stuff coming a few months in advance, and you can't tell anybody, because if you do, you're Chicken Little. They get mad at you for telling you stuff's coming. Mm-hmm. So I just stopped talking about it. I stopped watching the news. I stopped talking to my friends about current events. Really wanted to lean into the Bigfoot and stuff because it's a lot easier to focus on. I don't know, but I'm kind of in the mindset now where I at least need a little bit of social stress. Cliff telling me all the bad shit that's happening in the world, because if I just hide myself from it, it's going to be kind of like my immune system with COVID.
Yeah.
Like, I stayed inside. Like, I like borderline agoraphobic. I only come out to do shows, and I'll go like do some mild grocery shopping because I know what's going to happen in those situations. But other than that, I've been in this house for a couple of years, and my immune system has tanked so bad that the last 2 Decembers, I swear to God, I've almost died. Literally almost died. It was that bad. And so I recognize now that I can't stay in the house forever. I'm going to have to kind of accept the fallout scenario that we might be going into, and maybe find a way to not be so stressed out about it. Because, if I stay in here, I'm going to die of sickness.
Well, Alvin says grassroots people are more focused on eating and patching the leaky roof, so bring them out with their money and groceries. Those grassroots people. Yeah. Now, if it gets to that point, that's kind of that would be the eventual. That's when it's reached the bad level. Because if you look at the groups like that are already out in the streets clashing politically right now, it's nothing new for them to be out. But it is they don't kill each other that much. It does happen, but it's pretty rare. And I'm afraid it may start getting more common, and then eventually the grassroots people will get caught up in it. Alvin said it is and always has been a class war, and the sooner we get the people figure out we're being played against one another, the sooner we can embrace a better future. Yep, that's knowing is half the battle, as the G.I. Joe say.
I just worry that it doesn't, because I'm worried that I'm going to be like 82 years old, just sitting there, and I've already watched the right and the left just continue the same march towards whatever the hell they want.
Mm-hmm.
It bothers me. I'm getting to a point where, I can't. I know there was an analogy that we brought up where it doesn't matter if you vote or not. You're on the same train, and the train's going to take you wherever we're going. And but I do think it's so emotionally exhausting being a part of it. I don't know how long I can really keep interacting with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's one thing to kind of see what the hive is doing. I just don't think I can emotionally be a part of it, because it just seems like every time I've ever tried to get involved with groups that had like a good mindset and this is going to be a good thing, it just really was a nightmare. So maybe it's me.
Well,
I accept that as a possible scenario too, that I'm an unbearable person to be around. But I don't know.
Well, I don't think you're unbearable, Tim. I think you're a delight, and I think the viewers of the Iron Mountain Hour do so as well. I do want to show you a couple of things before we get out of here. So we're talking about the stability of the dollar. We're talking about the political left and right going after one another. We're talking about the banning of foreign apps, particularly from China. And today, China and Brazil reached a deal to trade in their own currencies, ditching the U.S. dollar as an intermediary. China is Brazil's biggest trading partner, with a record of $150.5 billion in bilateral trading last year. Also, Saudi Arabia joined China, the China-led security bloc and trade alliance with Russia, India, Pakistan, and others. So that's a pretty big deal. China and Brazil reached a deal to trade in their own currencies. China and Russia reached a deal to trade with currencies. The yuan went up in value. The U.S. is still, it's still pretty far and away the most desirable international currency, but it's getting some competition here. Let's go read a thread real quick by Geneviève Roche-Dicté, CFA. She says, the U.S. dollar is losing its reserve currency status. Here's what you should know. The U.S. dollar has been the backbone of the global economy for decades. Several countries even use the U.S. dollar as an official currency, like El Salvador, Panama, and Ecuador. And now Bitcoin is legal tender in El Salvador. In 1944, Bretton Woods Agreement established the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. 44 countries agreed to a global monetary system that would be underpinned by the U.S. dollar, which is in turn by gold. And that was done away in 1971 by Nixon. And it was basically then, with the United States controlling the most powerful military and most of the oil interests, it became the main trading platform for oil. And the petrodollar was born as gold was removed from the backing of it. So due to this, and basically backed up by the might and the faith and credit of the U.S. government and the tax-paying Americans, the U.S. dollar has historically been a safe haven for international investors. But a lot of times when times of crisis, money flows into the U.S. dollar as investors seek refuge from other troubling economies. But in 2014, Russia and China looked to shift the paradigm. They no longer wanted to rely on the U.S. dollar for international trade and investment, and this is called de-dollarization. And they signed a deal in 2014 to bypass the U.S. dollar. And there's been a lot of speculation that a lot of these countries that we invaded in the Middle East were the last holdouts on the planets without central banks. But she goes on to say, de-dollarization is happening everywhere. Central banks bought gold at a faster pace last year than they have in any year since 1987. This signals a desire for countries to back their own currencies with gold rather than the U.S. dollar. Today, trade is shifting away from the purview of the United States dollar. Take a look at how the volume of the Russian-Chinese trade denominated in yuan has spiked since the start of 2022. And what happened in the beginning of 2022, that was when... the money was all printed in 2020, but look at all the money that flowed into the U.S. economy. Here comes the Russian invasion. Russia gets cut off from the SWIFT banking system and largely from the U.S. dollar. And then look at the increase in trading in yuan. It goes from $0 billion a year to up to a peak of $200 billion, I guess that's in a month. Yeah, it's in a month, December. $200 billion of trade, or 200 billion yuan in the space of a month. So Russia's turned to China because it's been harder for them to trade in the dollar. Other markets also. It still, dominates the foreign exchange reserve, but the lead is slowly being chipped away. If you can see, it's 60% of foreign exchange reserve, but the euro has taken a good chunk out of it. And then you've got over here, Japanese, Great British pounds, Canadian dollars. So where's the yuan over here? I guess it's pretty small, but it's starting to take a larger share there, especially when you have these other. What's that?
It doesn't seem like it's a setup, though. Like, okay, I will admit maybe this is just me schizo thinking, or whatever is an unoffensive term for me connecting patterns that may or may not exist. But like, typically, got that dog's looking for food that doesn't exist. Typically, when you see things being moved around, like it's if we're going to sit here and claim that they're all on the same team and that they make moves on purpose? Doesn't it seem like they're moving a bunch of undesirable things into one piggy bank? That way, when the inevitability of a war strikes out, no.
Uh-oh.
The inevitability of a war strikes out. I don't know. That just
Well,
maybe I don't even understand currency. I don't know.
well, it's not necessarily that they're all building the same thing, but they all want control over it. So, different factions are going to fight for. I mean, this is not a. Even though it is called a one world government, it is, you know. The idea is globalism is one big system. All the different factions want control of it for themselves. They all think they've all got a plan for control over it. Alvin says the rest of the world is not playing on their team anymore. The euro's dying too, right behind the dollar. Every time we've issued economic sanctions, we just castrated the dollar's influence just a bit more. Yeah, this one with Russia was really bad because, you know, it basically. Now, Russia and China, of course, started their partnership back in 2014 as far as trading in the yuan, but it really pushed them into where they had no other choice but to mostly trade with one another. And now you had Brazil, Saudi Arabia. Of course, that's not everything, but, you know, the dollar's, it's losing some prominence. Yeah, I'm surprised, surprised it hasn't gone already too, Spill.
They've been telling us the dollar's been going down the hill since I was like 9.
And it has been.
And they've literally been saying that since I was 9, but like everything else is shit too. That's what I'm so confused. Like everybody's scared of like Russia and China being this big giant force. And yeah, they've got a lot of people, but have you seen the countries?
Yeah.
It just doesn't look like those countries can sustain what they're doing for a very long time because the majority of this is me. I could be speaking like an idiot. I don't know. It looks like you have millions and millions of people in China squished into a space about the size of the East Coast. And then you just have this giant land mass that's associated with it. And I just don't know. It just like Russia just looks like Russia looks like it just got over the Cold War.
No.
Like it doesn't look like it doesn't look like maybe Ukraine's going to destroy them here pretty soon. They look like they're not doing too well. So I just don't. And Saudi Arabia, you seen Saudi Arabia?
I've seen where the king lives.
Maybe bricks is like the grass start or something, but it just looks like they're setting up. It looks like they're setting up a straw man opponent. That way, when they go to war, they can just knock the absolute shit out of.
Maybe, but
especially if China's playing on their side. You kill our poor people, we'll kill yours with fentanyl.
Well, however you want to look at it, I mean, it's a faction. The world's breaking up into factions. Whoever's orchestrating it, however it's happening, it's happening. So it's important to pay attention to it, just at least to know where we stand on it. Spill says, Tim, you and me outdoor challenge, 30 minutes a day. Wait a minute, 30 minutes a day, go for a walk. What do you say? You hear that, Tim? Spill's giving you the outdoor challenge, 30 minutes a day minimum, go for a walk. What do you say?
I was outside for 4 hours today.
He said he was outside for 4 hours today.
I was outside for 4 hours today, cutting up trees and stuff, and I did feel better.
Yeah.
I do feel better. My issue is, I don't know. It's like Germany attacked the world. And people, if you stumble across this, and this is weird, like you think I'm crazy, I can't help it. I'm a musician, whatever. We think dumbly. I may be dumb as hell. I don't know. But Germany attacks the entire world and they think they can win. And meanwhile, you find out the people that live in the countries that they're attacking are actually giving this guy money. It just really seems like they're building up these countries to set up a war so they can kick the shit out of them. You're going to tell me Saudi Arabia is going to be able to stand up in a war? Like, they don't have anything over there. And I'm not trying to down talk them or anything like that, but in comparison to some of these other nations that are around them, that's pretty dangerous.
Well, they spend their money on military. If you ever look up the Gulf Gulf Cooperation Coalition or something like that, they do have pretty intense military stuff with between Israel and Saudi Arabia and I think Egypt. I can't remember all. I think it's like three countries. That's where all their money goes with military. Do what?
Well, not against what if the world attacks Saudi Arabia, they go down. day is what I'm saying. And I'm saying dude, India and China have had firefights up until recently, and they're going to try to have a currency together. How long before they go to war?
I read something about this. I don't think they've actually been having firefights. If the article I read was correct, they've just been beating each other with sticks and then retreating. That's what it said. It said that they weren't actually having. Was it India and China, or was that? I think that's who it was. It said they weren't firefights, but they were getting into like melee weapon fights. No, I could be mistaken.
Maybe I got.
I could be mistaken on that.
They've had skirmishes on the border of India and China for a really long time. I don't know. Spill, what I'm thinking, and it's just me thinking, I really honestly think I'd just be better off if I just lock myself into a naive artistic bubble, because I know Cliff likes this, and I know he wants to build this into an important thing to really get news out. But like, this stresses the fuck out of me, guys. It really does. And the reason for it is I can't change what China and Saudi Arabia does.
No, you can't.
So I start to really start thinking about this stuff later on. Like, do I need to even know about it if I can't change it? You know?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm just being honest. Like, I don't know. I can't do anything about Russia and Ukraine.
No, you can't. But what you can do is you can kind of take cues from what is happening over there, especially with financial stuff, and try to see how it might affect your life. So, yeah, you might not be able to change it, but you can definitely pay attention to see if it's going to affect you. Yeah, you can't obsess about it though. Don't think too much, probably.
Everything I see goes in my brain and goes down this filter of all the possible scenarios, and I can't help it. It's automatic. Like, it's very, very helpful when you're doing creative stuff, like, you know, like what I do. You know, gives you creative options with stuff. But like when you're doing it with the news and stuff like that, it'll about give you an aneurysm in your head. Yeah. When you start looking at the actual possibilities versus what realistically might happen. Yeah. And then the natural response when you start having anxiety about stuff is to try to talk to other people about it, and other people don't want to hear it. Yeah. And so that isolates you and puts you into sort of a lone wolf scenario where you feel, you know, different than other people because you learned something on the internet or something like that that you are kind of stressed about and you want to talk to somebody about it, but they don't want to hear it. And so I don't know. I'm just going through that whole "what's the point" thing. That's my new theme.
That's kind of that's kind of what this show is for those of us who see all this stuff to kind of get together and talk about what is the point and where do we go and what are possible solutions, what are useful actions that we can take, what is the point of warning everybody about what's going to happen unless we have something in place. And that's why I really want to do the show on that. Alvin, I hope you'll get with me on that. If you don't want to do it, don't worry, I'm not going to be mad, but we'd definitely love to have you in here. I'll look forward. I got your email earlier tonight. I look forward to the Agora email, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and I don't think you were reviewing at the show at the time, Alvin, but we did for a while. We were doing these Freedom Cell meetings where we had some local groups trying to get together to form some of these, and I guess they would be called Agora type communities after my friend was telling me about that it was called Agora. But I would love to have you in and talk on that stuff. We can work it out. Just give me a holler at the ironmountainhour@gmail.com. Anybody else that might want to participate, let me know. Spill, she says, let me get right here. Alvin says, Spill said dumb. No, think too much, probably. I guess you're talking about what you said, Tim. Alvin said, the world and the USA is not as it seems. I learned a very hard lesson about my country in 1978 and never been the same since. Spill says it does get to you, but don't personalize it. But it's part of their show to get to the emotions going, that loose, to get that loose and feed. Yeah, that's right. Been there, always got to find solutions, be prepared but not overly bothered. Yep. And that's the good part about being somewhat prepared is you won't be overly bothered by it. And that kind of takes away some of that anxiety. So, no one wants to hear it, but that's why we're all together here. That's why we're hanging out on a Sunday and Wednesday night, 10 p.m., talking about some of these things. Sometimes it's fun, sometimes it's not. We'll try to get to something fun while we build the solutions. Let's get into something a little out there. What do you think about the Brown Mountain Lights? We definitely need to arrange a show on there. I think I'm gonna go over there and check that out in the very near future, and maybe we can do some recording for the show there. So let's think about some other fun stuff that we want to do, because we can't be all negative stuff all the time. We gotta have fun, and we do have a lot of fun on this channel, but it tends to be on the weekends, and then the Wednesday nights usually the doom scrolling stuff. What's that?
See, it's not even. I think that I need to get like Alvin. You go ahead and read Alvin's quote. I'd like to respond to it.
Yeah, it says, "Will do, Tim. Keep stroking, brother. Your heart is right. Just got to get the head caught up. God bless y'all."
It's not that I think that there aren't people that are necessary. Like, I do think, if no one was paying attention to anything, then you would have a weird society that would probably fall into torment way quicker than if people were paying attention and were controlled. I'm simply positing to the internet and our little listener base that likes to debate this stuff with us, that maybe there's certain personality types that really should probably stay out of it. And the reason I say that is because, like, if it was someone like
you don't want a schizophrenic overly concerned with it.
Well, I'm not schizophrenic. I mean,
no,
that's,
I'm saying if you had a schizophrenic friend, that's probably not the person you'd want to try to have these conversations with.
Well, I wouldn't really. Yeah, it depends on what level. I mean, it's more like I don't know. Maybe it's not a personality type. Maybe it's just I wasn't raised for high stress to all. It's not even about high stress. It's high stress that I can't affect. That's kind of what bothers me. And like
but that's the whole thing, Tim, is there are things that you can affect, and by affecting the things that you can, it takes some of the stress off for the things that you can't.
I guess my point to that being is I was already ready to start doing some stuff to make myself less dependent on society without knowing about all the China currency stuff.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, at what point are we saying you shouldn't listen to the mainstream news and then start analyzing what the mainstream news is saying? Like, doesn't that seem like some bipolar thinking to, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm starting to think maybe Terrence McKenna was right. Maybe we should just stop consuming any of it. Maybe it would just go away.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a super naive mindset. But then again, there's a bunch of weirdos out there like me that'd rather sit there and play their guitar and make weird videos and stuff all day. That I don't know. Maybe we're not emotionally mature enough to handle it, or maybe it just drives our overactive brains just completely crazy to see the world interacts with each other. Like, the hive confuses me.
Yeah.
It really does. It boggles my mind the way I know it sounds like hippie talk. I don't understand the way people treat each other. I don't hate either side. I relate to both sides on some level.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why both sides want to embrace their own sins, but then actively call out the sins on the other, thus creating this like feedback loop where both sides get to behave like pieces of shit, creating just like this vortex, this ever spiraling vortex of people just getting shittier.
And I'll be the hippie now. Can't we all just get along, man? I mean, and yeah, that's I don't know. I mean, you like to blame modern society, but if you go back throughout history, people have never just gotten along. I mean, there have been periods of getting along.
What's Alvin there? One of the groups.
One of the groups he helps with their training is much like that, Tim. Just tell us what we need to know. No analysis, please.
What's that mean?
Don't tell us all the news. Just tell us what we need to do to be ready. Don't get us into all the crap about China and Russia and blah, 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 blah. Just tell us what we need to be doing. That's the way I interpret it anyway. The noise is designed to confound and obfuscate, so we give up and say whatever. Yeah, I believe you're right. But, I like, again, I wouldn't be doing the show if I didn't think there was hope. That's why I said I got started on one episode of the show and I didn't actually finish the thought. But I am white-pilled. It means that, not that I mean that everything's going to be all better today or tomorrow, but that eventually that I do think that there is hope for people to head more in the right direction, and I see signs of it.
At me. Tell me a few white flakes. Maybe I'll start rolling the white pill around in my mouth to see what it tastes like. But
well, again, like all over the country, and even in this area, there's groups that are getting together and doing the kind of things that we're talking about, forming co-ops, or forming networking groups on the community level. There's lots of small businesses out there. You see, dog's in trouble. You see small businesses working together with local people in the community. You see, people trying to grow gardens, people trying to can, people sharing techniques, people forming training groups, algorithms, freedom cells, all different kinds of this stuff. Some people are talking on the internet, other people are getting together and doing things. Some people are doing both. So it's definitely, we're seeing a move in culture towards the kind of things that we're talking about. It's small, but it's happening, and it's reaching. It is reaching some of the mainstream sources, and they're having to acknowledge it. So it's definitely getting out there. So I think that's a white pill. And again, another white pill is the amount of propaganda that the powers that be throw at us, and is still ineffective on a certain amount of us to a large degree. So, I think, I forget who said it, but if they were winning, and if it were hopeless, then all the lies, the bullshit, spin, propaganda, psyops wouldn't be necessary. They're having to do that because they're desperate. And
are they, or is it just a stair step?
Well, that could be too. That could be too, but I don't think they're winning. I think that shows that they're not winning, because.
But how can they win or lose? Like Spill was saying earlier, that maybe that she, this is just something to get us stressed out so they can use the energy. And I've been thinking that for quite a long time, just kind of erring on the side of maybe I'm just crazy, that maybe they gave us all these podcasting giants, over the last couple of years to convince a bunch of us people to go, hey, I got a phone. It seems really easy to sit here and, bullshit with my friends and make a little bit of show out of it, because we did it, we was like, we could probably get a couple people to talk about this stuff with us. Mm-hmm. And so, what if that was intentional to, what if we're being used, what if we're being used to stress everybody out, even though I seem like I'm the only one stressed out?
I don't think we're stressing anybody out. I think most of our audience is probably aware of a lot of it, a lot of the stuff anyway, even though,
if anybody's made it this far on a Wednesday night episode, because I know it's one of the lower watched episodes, people usually come in for the weekend. If you've made it this far, would you be honest and comment in the chat whether or not you're stressed out or not? I'm not saying...
I don't think Spill or Alvin are stressed.
I'm not saying it's not important. I'm saying I'm curious if there's anybody else out there that's like me, that's questioning whether or not they should even watch the news anymore, because I can't change it. It just stresses me out. I'm just curious if anybody out there is in that same boat. I'm not saying stop watching the show. I'm just saying I'm at a weird place where, big surprise, a shut-in with, I like Alvin's word there. I didn't know it was the root word for my diagnosis, which is, agoraphobia. I don't go out in public a lot, it's and it's more because I see the way the culture's changing, and it just stresses me out. And it's got nothing to do with guns. It's got nothing to do with LGBT. I'm not afraid of those things, man. My neighborhood up here sounded like there was a shooting range going on, because turns out there is. Not afraid of guns. Johnson City has had a giant LGBT group the entire time I've been around. Strange for this part of the world, but I've been around gay people my whole life. Not going to out anybody, but I grew up with a bunch of them. So I'm not afraid of the LGBT. I'm afraid of this new acceptance on all sides of the political platform, where we all just think it's okay to start punching the other side. Because that's a slippery slope when we start championing the death of other people just because they disagree with you on something. It's a pretty terrifying place to be in when you're too faggy for the right, but yet you're too conservative for the left. Because I'm in a pretty weird, lonely position in here. That's why I don't really speak unless I'm online, which is weird enough. But you never know what people are going to believe and what's going to piss people off anymore. You might find out that people are pro-littering, and now they want to hurt you because they're pro-littering, I could say stupider shit than that,
Mm-hmm. Well, Tim, you're at home here. You can stand under our umbrella. If for anybody who saw our video, we were talking about the Rihanna song the other day, because they said they played a guy had a near-death experience, or he actually died, and said they were playing Umbrella from Rihanna in Hell, along with Don't Worry Be Happy, and other songs. But no, I feel where you're coming from, Tim. But listen, I think that's a good place to wrap it there. I think you definitely give us a lot to think about, and I definitely rambled a lot. I don't know if I give you anything to think about or not, but I appreciate you joining us. Go over and like the video if you haven't already. Check out the Rumble. Email us, Alvin. Love to hear from you. I'll look forward to hearing from you. Spill, thank you for coming out, Joe, Alvin. Let's see. I think that's all we had, Joe and Alvin and Spill in the chat tonight. And Tim versus everybody. So,
that's me.
Yeah, no.
Links.
All right, well, I appreciate y'all, and we will see you Sunday. I'm not sure we'll get on to you. I saw your chat about Donnie Laws. We'll check that out. Oh, I forgot to tell you, if you know that, what's that guy, Donnie Baker, the comedian? Wilbur is doing a Find the Gray Man tapes and read. Alvin says, you're fine, young man, just putting one foot in front of the other. Just not stress, but understand and deal with stress every day in every group. Find the Gray Man tapes and read. Don't hear that? Read, Tim. Find the Gray Man tapes.
I'm dyslexic. I can't read, so I'll find a YouTube video on it.
Find you the book on tape.
But I do think Alvin should call in one Wednesday night, and you and Cliff can try to white pill me together. Maybe that can be the new theme of the show. Make Tim less stressed out about whether or not he should even be paying attention to this crap anymore. Because that's where I'm at. Well, I try to do stuff, Phil. It's just when I start seeing bad stuff, I take it too far and I start researching and I fall down rabbit holes you can't get out of. And normal people can't live with that stuff. I really do believe that. I don't think it's possible for a person to hold a family together and maintain a 9-to-5 and all this stuff and know about bricks and all that shit. I think it's too much for a person's mind to take.
Could be right. No hill for a couple of climbers. All right. Well, with that, we're going to take off. Like I said, I'll check out the Donnie Laws on the Brown Mountain Light side. Do you happen to know Donnie, Alvin? Yeah, I'll check that out. He's got some really good videos. But there's a lot of stuff out there on the Brown Mountain Lights. I want to actually go out there and do some video. I've never been. I was talking about wanting to go with my wife, and I was like, we need to do a show on that too. And so she and I will probably go here in the near future. Maybe I can get some video. Yeah, let's get out and hike. We'll do an Iron Mountain Hour hike. That'd be fun.
I'll go hiking if y'all want to.
Yeah, so we'll get that together. Maybe
we can make some
I do want to do the Second Amendment Day in the near future too, but it might be fun to do a hike even before that. And I was talking about doing a trash pickup last year and never got around to doing that, so that'd be cool.
I'd have a trash pickup.
All right, y'all. Well, let's look at something like that. We can be our own white pill by being the change that we wish to see in our community, like Barack Obama said. All right, y'all. Appreciate it. We'll see you Sunday night. We'll get into something a little more fun this time. I'm not sure exactly what yet, but we'll come up with something really quirky and entertaining. And we don't want to be all taking ourselves too seriously all the time, because there's a lot of fun stuff we can talk about too, and then we can always get back to it when we need to the serious stuff. So I appreciate y'all coming out, appreciate you talking to us, and we will see you Sunday night. Later.